Hi guys, good evening and welcome to this session. So good morning for those who are in the morning hours, good evening for those in the evening time zones. Welcome to this session. This is Primus Learning. My name is Primus Veku, and this is an interesting session, guys. If you have been looking for ways to migrate a monolithic application to a microservice type of application, here is your video. Here is what you need, guys. So in this video, we'll be migrating a monolithic application from that monolithic manner of it to a microservice architecture. So we'll be decoupling a monolithic application to a microservice, and we will be deploying that into ECS in AWS, to the Elastic Container Service. So guys, these are the steps we would follow. There, of course, you need to have Docker installed. You need to have the AWS CLI installed and everything working smoothly before you can follow along this video. So guys, thanks for joining us again. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Do not forget to share our videos. Please do not forget to comment and let us know what you think. Tell us what content you want us to create for you, what videos you want us to create for you in terms of videos that would help you build your DevOps career, build your solutions architect career, build your data engineering career, and of course, leveraging cloud services like AWS services, Azure services, Google services, and other things, right? So this video right here is dedicated to those who want to migrate applications and they're wondering how to decouple that application and migrate it to AWS. This one will be about 2 hours long, so it's longer. You can watch and rewatch or watch, do other things and watch again. But yes, this one is a little bit long, but it is a valuable add-on to your skill sets, right, guys? All right, so the very first thing you need to do is that you need to have Docker installed. You need to have the AWS CLI installed. So if I do AWS configure here, you should see that I have the AWS CLI installed, right? So that's it, it's installed. So everything is looking good here. And if I do Docker here, you should see that I have Docker running, right? See, if I type just Docker, it brings up all these commands and help things about Docker. So yes, I have Docker installed in this machine. I'm using a Mac, it has Docker installed and everything is looking good. So the very first step, guys, as you see, is to create the monolithic application and push it to ECR. Now, we have created a folder called monolith to microservices. This is it right here. This is the folder right here, right? And inside that folder, we have an application called, the folder is called Amazon ECS Node.js Microservices, ECS Node.js, the microservices, right? So this is the folder. And inside this folder, we have different folders as well. We have the microservices folder and we have the monolithic folder. These are the important folders under these under this other folder here. So this is your project folder and these are just the services under. And so the important thing you need to know, the first step, as we said, we want to create a monolithic application. And what is a monolithic application? So this is the monolithic application here. So under the monolithic directory here, we have another directory called the services directory. So you want to have the services directory, and under the services directory, we have another one called API. And under the API, we have different files. So we have a Docker file in here, which will help build this application. And we have different other files. So this is the server.js. This is the application itself. These are files that you need to have for a Node.js application. So this is the database part of the application, and this is what we'll be decoupling. You can see that there are users there are three different things under this application, three different services, you could say. So we have the user service, we have the thread service. So we'll break them down later when we're decoupling, right? And then we have the post. So we have posts, we have users, and we have threads. Those are three different things, and these are database components, right? And so we have a Docker file that can build this application as one, right? So inside this Docker file, you just have an Alpine base that we're using. So the base image we're using is Alpine node, and this is the version. And we want this to run on the work on this directory, the service directory. And of course, we will be adding all of these files, right, in this directory. So this is what this Docker file, when we build this Docker file, would happen, and then it will run this npm install. So we install npm, and it will expose the application on port 3000, and we will start Node.js and run this app right here. Of course, this is how this application will build. So the very first step we want to do is to build this application and push it out to ECR. So let us head to ECR and create an ECR repository. So I want to go to ECR Elastic Container Registry and create a registry. So we have some registries that are existing here. I'll just delete some because I will use some here. So let's just delete one by one. Let's delete this API because I want to create one called API as well. So you see in here, we have an application called, this application will be called API, right? So you see API. Yeah, we'll create the registry called API. I just want to name it this way because you'll see why I'm naming it this way. So let's create the repository called API. So we've given it the name API. Everything looks good. So leave everything the same. We're making it public and everything looks good. So we create, and we've created the API. And so we want to copy all the commands here. So you see, so we want to retrieve an authentication token and authenticate our Docker client to this registry, right? So this is what we want to do by running the AWS ECS get login password, and we want to log into this repository. We want to configure this repository to our environment here. So what we need to do is go into this path. This is where we want to be before running this, right? So I will just right click here and integrated terminal and bring it up. So I'm inside the API. So I'm inside this folder because we want to run the Docker file in here. And so I will just place this command here and hit enter. So it should log me in to this environment. By the way, I want to actually run this on what I want to do is I want to run this on a different region. So we'll create that back again. Sorry, guys. So I want to run this on US West region. So yeah, sorry, I was creating that somewhere else. I want to run that here. So I'll create a repository here called API and just do the same thing. Just copy these commands over and run that here. This first one. So I'm already inside. I'll just run this. All right, so I succeeded. I can clear my screen and copy the next one. So what does the next one do? The next command will build. So it will build all the files you see under this API directory, right? So you see there is this API and you have all these files. So this Docker file will just build everything that is here, and that's why we are doing that. So let's just do API build. You see why we created that thing called API. You see, it's doing everything and it's built already. It's built that application. And so what next do we do? We want to copy this next command, which is simply tagging the API with the letters tag. So after the build complete, we want to tag the image so that we can be able to push it out to ECR, right? So let's tag it by running this command, docker tag. Remember the docker tag command? All right, so we've tagged this application, or this image, and now we want to push this image to this repository that we just created, right? So that's the next thing we want to do. We want to run the Docker push command to push out the latest image of that API that we just built into this repository. So we'll come here and run that. And you see it's preparing to push. It's actually pushing, it's pushing. So the process is going on. So this will take a few seconds. So we've pushed our image out to ECR. So our image is right here in ECR. What you can do is you can close this and refresh. You should be able to see that your image is running here, right? So guys, we've created an image, we've pushed it out to ECR. That's very important. We've pushed the image out to ECR. Next, we want to then move to another service and create a, an ECS service. So that's what we want to do next. So let's go to ECS. The service is ECS. So we could create this ECS with Terraform or anything, right? It all depends on the organization you're working in. You could do this. There are scripts. Remember, we've always shown you scripts to use, Terraform scripts to create this. But I choose to do this for this demo, just so you can follow along and create it as well. So let's create the cluster. We'll call this cluster monolithic app. So we'll just call it a monolithic app. And you want to use the VPC, the default VPC, and use the subnets that are there. Then it needs to be in a public subnet. So we'll leave it on that subnet. And then we want to leave it on Fargate. So you want to use serverless computing, and the service, the infrastructure, the instances we're using are Fargate. So leave it at Fargate. Everything else should look the same. So once you have this, you're ready to go to create. So let's create. So our cluster will take a little while to create. As it's creating, we can go ahead and create our task definitions. So, in exposing an application in ECS, you need task definitions to be able to do that. So let me duplicate this page. Let me see if oh, so it's created already. Let me see if I can duplicate this page, new tab, and just do ECR, because we'll be going back and forth with this ECR image right here. All right. Okay, so let's go back here. So our monolithic app cluster is created. So this is an ECS cluster that has been created. So let's go to task definitions and create a task definition. We want to create a new task definition. Why? Because we want to be able to create a service out of these task definitions. The task definition will simply connect us to that ECR image, right? So that we can be that image that we launched and pushed out to ECR, so that we can be able to create a service and expose the application that we built. Remember, we built an application and pushed it out to ECR. And now we want to use that image and build an application from. So we'll call this task definition API. You see, we'll name it API. And for the container name, we'll name it API. And for the repository where the image is stored, you see why I opened this, you just come and copy the URI of the image. So this is a link to the image. And then you have that image here. And the container port, remember our port was 3000, right? So want to open this, expose this application to port 3000. You can see it here. We expose this application to port 3000. That's what we want on this ECR. So we are just defining a template of our image, how we want that image to look. All right, the rest look good. So on environment variables here, we're good. We're good. We'll go to next. All right, so you want to make sure that serverless Fargate is selected here, right? So this Fargate is selected. You want to make sure of that. And then the task rows, you want to make sure everything looks good like this. Let's see if there's anything we need to change here. Nothing that we need to change. So you go to next. And this looks good. We can create. So we've created our task definition, and now we want to create a service from this task definition. So let's go under the cluster that we created. The cluster was monolithic. And under that, you want to go to services. So you want to be under the service and you want to create a service. So let's hit on create service. And the launch type that we want to use is this. So you come to this launch type and use Fargate. Please use Fargate. And then want to deploy a service. So want to launch a service, right? And so what task definition are we using? We're using the API task definition, and we're using the latest image of it, right? And so the name we want to give it is API. So give it the name API, and it will automatically select the replica, and you want to give it just one replica because this is just a demo. Want to use, this is the number of replicas you want on your application when you are deploying. So you just give that. So we'll leave it at 1. Networking, leave it at default. It will use the default VPC here, and then use an existing security group. What you can do is you can use the default security group. So we'll use the default security group. And then for the load balancer, we want to create a new load balancer. We'll call this load balancer, we'll use the application load balancer, make use of the application load balancer, and want to create a new load balancer. We'll call it API. So this is the API load balancer. Well, let's call this services load balancer, actually. The services load balancer. And you see it will expose on port 3000, right? Because it used the API task definition. Remember the task definition we defined, and we want to expose it on this port because it's an HTTP web application. And the target group, we want to create a new target group, right? We'll call this target group API. So we'll call this target group API target group, and you can leave it here. Health, grades, everything should look fine if you want auto scaling, but for now, let's leave everything as is. So we want to create, this will take a little while, but we're creating our service. So the service is deploying, should take a moment for your application to be up and running. So I'll pause this video, give it a moment to finish creating, and then we will come back. So see you back in a moment. Hi guys, so the video, so the service got created. It took about 2-3 minutes to complete creation. And so you see there's one task that is running, one service that's running, everything is looking good. So deployments and tasks are completed, they are running, looking neat here. So remember we created a load balancer. So we'll go to the load balancer. So let's go through here. So let's go to EC2. So you go to EC2, you see, and go to load balancers. See, there's one load balancer for this region, and we called it services load balancer. So inside, you could copy the DNS name for this service and see if your application is running. And yes, ready to receive requests. So your application is running. You can do requests. You see, the app here was API, right? The app here was API, so there's the /API, services /API. So we'll have to put a /API there. And then you can query each of these tables that we call threads, posts, and others. So these are the 3 services that we have for our application. So we'll do API, then /users, for instance. And voila, you have the data about the users. This is the same data that we have displayed right here for users. So if you go into users, see users, you have Marceline, you have Finn, you have PB, you have Jake, and they have all the data, this information about them. So if you go up here, you have that information, Marceline, you would have Finn, you have PB, this is PB, and you have Jake at the end here, and all that information about them, right? So it's the same thing. You can browse for threads, and you get information about the threads, same thing that is down there. So if you see on this second option here, you have threads, and these are the threads that you have. And then after threads, you have posts. So we can look at posts, which means our application is working as one, right? It's working as one. We have threads and we have posts. Voila, you will see the number, the posts that people posted. So it's a post table. You're able to browse your tables and see. So we have deployed a monolithic application. This application is deployed as one, right? It's deployed as one service. It's one service that's deployed currently. So that's the first thing that we did. We've deployed. This is the first step, as I showed you here. This is the first step. We created a monolithic application, pushed it out to ECR, and now deployed it, and it's running effectively. Let's leave it there as is, right? And let's go create a microservice. We want to decouple this application. So we want to break it down into different services. And so inside this, you have the microservices folder, and inside it, we have services. And what type of services do we have? We have 3 different services: posts, threads, and users. So we've broken down the application. We've broken down this application into different services. This is the first one. And so if you get into this file, you see just posts, right? Because this is post. You have its Docker file. So it has its Docker file. Same thing, you go into use the same Alpine base image, go into this service. You want to deploy everything and expose it to port 3000. And these same files that were in the other one are here as well. These same 3 files, they are here, right? This is the application itself. So you're simply decoupling this database part of it into its service. So that's the first one, which is post. The second one is threads. You have its image. You have to build its image. You have to build its image differently using the same thing. And so you'll see only the threads table right here. So it's been decoupled. It's been broken down from the monolithic one. Then you have the users part, which is defined in the users table. So the users table is one. It would be deployed as an image on its own. And so we would build all the files in here to have it pushed up to ECR as an image on its own. So this means that we'll have to create 3 ECR repositories. One will be called posts. The next will be called threads. The other one will be called users. So let's go ahead and start with the first one called post, right? Because we want to build an application for post. We want to build an image, sorry, for post. So let's go to ECR, same in the same region. Let's use this for ECR. And create a repository called posts. So we'll call it posts. Everything same. And do that, create posts. And we'll just run the command. Same way we run the other commands, right? So instead of running it here, we want to make sure that we are inside posts, right? You see where we are currently. This time you want to make sure you're inside post. So you can right click here and just go into post. You see we are in post. And so copy the first command there, which is AWS ECR get login password. So that's what we're doing. I want to log into that repository. So we've succeeded. Let's go run the second command. The second command is simply building all the files, or using all the files that are in that directory and building them. So we want to build all these files under this directory. We want to use this Docker file and build everything here. So we'll do that and run. So it's building everything, gathering all the information here and building. So after building, we want to tag the image, right? We'll tag the image to be latest. So let's run this and tag that image. We've tagged the image, and then the last thing we want to do is we want to push it to ECR. So let's do the push. So it's currently pushing our image to ECR. It should be available in a moment. All right, so our image has been pushed to ECR. Let's go verify that our image is in ECR. So we'll just do this and refresh here. So you see we have one image, which is for post, the post image. All right, let's go here again, create the second one. The second one here is called, so the second service is called threads. So create a threads repository, create a repository called threads, and create, and simply open it up, go to view push commands, and just copy the first, and make sure that we are inside the threads directory here. So threads, you have to be inside that directory to run this, because we want to build that image in there, else you have an error. All right, so we've succeeded to log in. Let's build the image. Or let's build the application. It's an image that we're building, so it's done building. Now let's tag it. It's tagged, and now let's push. We want to push out to Docker Hub. In this case, our Docker Hub is ECR in the AWS space. All right, so we're pushing it out. Give it a moment. All right, so it's pushed, and we're done with that second part there. So let's go to the third thing, which is the users. So this is the users application or the user service that we want to deploy or want to build and push, want to build using this. So we'll simply go to ECR and create. So just to verify that this is existing. Yes, it's existing. So let's create a users repository, create repository. So we've created a users repository, and inside we want to do the same. We want to log in. So make sure that we're inside the users thing here. All right. So we'll run this first one. We succeeded. So we succeeded in running that. Let's log in. Let's build. Want to build the image. Okay. So we're building everything here using this Docker file. And we're exposing it to port 300 or 3000. We've done the build and want to tag our image. So the tag is done. Now let us push the image out to ECR. All right, so this is the push section. We're pushing our image out. Okay, so neat. We've created the three different, we've built the three different applications or three different services, and we have pushed them out to ECR. So we are ready to deploy them. And we'll use the same cluster where the API service was deployed, right? Which was monolithic, right? We use the same one, the same cluster to deploy our application. So, but this time we're deploying them as separate services, right? Separate services. So let's do this. Let's go into this same cluster. So we're in the same cluster. We want to create task definitions for each of those services. So create a task definition. We'll call this one, the first one that we have here is post. We'll create a first task definition called posts. So posts, the name will be posts. And we want to get the ECR URI for posts. So this is the URI for posts, you see. So we can just open it so we don't get confused. Copy the ECR URI for post and paste here. And of course, it's port 3000, remember? And we go to next. So remember, you want to use Fargate. You want to use everything as is. Everything looks good. Go to next and create. All right, so we've created the post task definition. We want to create the next one. Next one should be threads. And threads, copy the URI for that one, which is threads. Copy URI and paste on the URI section here so that you can pull the image down. We want it to be on port 3000, which is the port it was exposed on. And Fargate, everything same. Next, and create. All right, so this task definition has been created. We want to create a third one. And this third one should be users. So users, we'll call it users again, users, and we'll get the URI for users. We want to grab the URI for users and bring back here. Remember, it has to be on port 3000 if you're following along. So let's go to next. Fargate has to be same. Make sure it's Fargate, everything same. All of that same. Go to next and create. All right, so this is awesome. We've created our task definitions. We've created everything. We have the 3 task definitions that are created. Next thing we want to do is create our services, right? So we want to create our services, go back to the cluster, go inside this cluster, go into services. So we want to create a service each. So we want to create 3 different services, right? Remember, so there's 3 different services that we need to create just because we have decoupled. Decoupling simply means we've broken them down into different things, right? So decouple them. We want to now create a service for each of them. So let's do that. You see, the application is still running on the monolithic side. So you don't need to worry about downtime and all that. You don't need to worry about downtime. Now let's go here. Okay, and we want to do this, the service, and want to select. So the first one is post that we want to select, latest. Service name is posts. So we'll give the service name as posts. And let's leave the desired capacity or the desired replica sets to be 1. Networking, same. We use the same VPC, use existing 1. And this, of course, is open to the internet. And then for the load balancer, we want to use the same load balancer. Remember, we created a load balancer already called services. So we want to use an existing load balancer in this case called services. And we want to expose it to that port. And then here we want to use an existing one. This, we already created a listener on port 80, right? So we want to open port 80 up. So make sure that it's open. The target group we want to use here, we'll create a new target group. We'll have to create a new target group for this. So this target group, we'll call it post, right? Because this is the post one we're creating. And then on here, we'll just do posts and we'll call this 1. This is the evaluation order. It has to have a certain order for this to function. I'll explain this later. So we'll use 1 here. And everything else looks good. We'll go to create. So we're creating our first one, which is posts. We'll create the second one. So let's create the second one. The second one, we'll call it, use this launch type again. Remember this launch type is Fargate. And the service name or the task definition we are doing. The first one we created was post. The second one is threads. So the second one is threads. Desired capacity is 1 as well. And then the networking is same load balancer. We want to use the existing load balancer, which is an application load balancer. And so it would load balance the traffic that is coming into this application on port 3030. Sorry, I don't know why I always say 3030 or 3000. All right. And the target group wants to create a new target group. And the target group name should be, we'll call the target group name threads. Call this new target group name threads. And evaluation 2. This path, put threads here. And everything should look same. I think everything's looking good. So we create, oops. Oh, service name is threads. It's threads, the second service. So creating. Okay, so this second one is active and it's working. So while that one is creating, let's create a third one, which is come here again, Fargate, make sure it's Fargate, service family. This time is users. So create another one, service name is users. Okay. So the load balancer is an application load balancer. I want to use an existing load balancer called services. And then the port is 8080 and we want to create a target group called users. Yeah, I think it's looking good. Target group users, and here, hold on. Okay. Let's see networking. Yeah, same. So load balancer, application load balancer, existing one, this and that. Target group name, users. Okay, the protocol is that. Health. Check this. Looks like I'm missing something here. I think it looks good. Creating many things at the same time. We want to set the path to this target group. So this is users. Okay, the username is this. Replica set is this. Options this. This. Okay, the existing one uses that. Okay, load balancer. So go under load balancers, application load balancer. I want to use an existing one, this. And that's the port, the target group. Okay, I thought it was not bringing this. So the target group is thread, users, sorry, users. Call it threads. And then we create, oops. Oh, so it used this port 80 already. So want to use this. Yeah, sorry, this is what I was missing. Exactly, this is the path I was missing. The thread users. Oh, man, I was missing it out. And one, no, this is 3, sorry. So use 3 here. And so we don't need anything on the hard one. Okay, good. Got it. All right, so let's create. The third one should be up and running in a moment. So let's give it a few moments, guys, as it finishes creating the service. We'll be back to continue from here. All right. All right. So the three new services are up and running, guys. You can see they're all green here, which means they are successful. You can already begin to see that the services running correctly in your load balancer. But let's go to target groups again. And so want to fail over the traffic, want to move the traffic from there. So let's go to EC2 and create a new target group. So go to EC2 here, go to target groups. You see, we have a drop-off target group. I want to delete this and create one new one. So let's create this. I did these yesterday, so I think I can delete. No, they are the target groups that created today. Goodness, I should have. Oh, I almost deleted these new target groups. So I created them today. So let's create a new target group here called and use IP address. So select IP address for this one. And we want to make sure it's on port 80 here. And the same VPC we selected. Remember, the default VPC is what we want to use. So make sure you have that default VPC. What's the default VPC name? I think it was just default. I want to make sure it's in the same thing, right? So I don't. This is the default VPC. I want to make sure I'm selecting the right one. So let's do this. It should automatically select the right one though. Shouldn't mess up with it. So let's recreate. Let's create and go here and name it drop off. So the port is same. We use this default. I think it's using the default. HTTP1, everything looks good. Health checks look good. Go to next. Everything here looks good. Networking looks good. Create target group. I want to edit it. I want to edit this target group. You see it's currently looking this way, ugly. And so want to, let's see. So let's go to the, we've created this target group, sorry. Let's go to the load balancers. Sorry, I was distracted a little bit, sorry. Let's go to the load balancer and edit this load balancer. So we want to edit this listener. And you remember this, the main application is forwarding to API, right? This is where it's forwarding. So it's forwarding to this. So we want to edit this. And instead of forwarding to it, we want to forward to drop off so that, you know, we just want to remove traffic from the current application so that it sends it somewhere else, right? Send the traffic somewhere else. We want to drop off that traffic from here. And that's why we did that. So you see, we are sending it to a new target group. So it's no longer sending traffic to this service right here. So if we come here, it won't be sending traffic here. You see, we're out of service on this application. Why? Because we dropped off the traffic on there and we want to push that traffic elsewhere, right? We want to push that traffic elsewhere. And to do that, we want to go into the listeners again. So go into the load balancers. So the load balancer services. Go into this service thing. Then we want to go into rules. You see, we have different rules here. Why? Because we have created 4 different listeners, right? We've created posts, we've created threads, we've created users, we've created drop-off. Now, the traffic that was going on, we want to direct that traffic here, right? So this is where we want to direct the traffic. And so instead of the path that was API / this, we want to manage rules and come in here and edit. So you want to edit each of this and make sure this part is /post /API. So it has to have API. Remember that application was sending to API. So it has to be /API /post. And then everything else that comes in front of post. This is what you want to do. You want it to have. Everything else that comes in front of post, please display it here. And so we'll update this one. Go to the second rule. So we've updated this one. Go to the second rule, edit it. We'll have to add API here. Remember, the API path is there. And then threads. And then after threads, we want to add a star, which means display everything under threads. We'll update. And then for this, we want to edit it as well. Edit this path. Under users, we want everything under users to be API /users /star. Then we'll update this. I think it's okay. Update. Everything under there is now looking good. And let's see this one. So this traffic is currently dropped off, right? So we have the load balancer DNS, which is working. We have all the 3 DNS which are working. And so if we go to the DNS of this load balancer, so go back to the load balancer, go to the DNS of this load balancer, copy this, and you see it's not working, right? It's not working because it was not working. And now if you go back, delete this, you want to serve from the new application, the new one. And so if you do /API /threads, it should serve you from the threads one. Perfect. So it's redirecting you to the one we just created, to the threads. If you do users, it's serving you from the new service that you created. It's a new service. It's decoupled. This service is a service on its own. If you do users, it's serving you users. And so you see, it's completely serving from decoupled applications this time. It is a microservice that is working and no longer the single service. So even if you delete this one, so if you delete, if you go back here and delete this, right? The API, your application will still work. It won't delete now because it has things under it, I think. Your application will keep working. Oh, it's deleting, right? Your application simply is working because you've now used different services under it. You've decoupled it from here and your application is still serving. So guys, this is how you decouple your application and make it work as separate services. Hope this video is helpful and makes sense to you. Guys, leave me your questions, leave me your reactions, and let me know how you would decouple this application. I will upload the content, the code base to this video and put a link right on the description section so that you can have access to this and you can play around with it. And of course, you can build a CI/CD pipeline on top of it using GitHub Actions, right? You can create a workflow here that deploys this quickly using GitHub Actions. You can use Jenkins to deploy this. If you watch our other videos, search it on our YouTube channel, you should be able to see how to create a workflow on top of this, and you will not have to manually do this, right? But this video was just to show you how to decouple this, and you can run it using the same cluster, using the same ECS cluster, and build your application as a decoupled application or as a microservice instead of a monolithic application. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Primus from Primus Learning, and it was my pleasure presenting this to you. See you again next time. Bye-bye.